Hello, and welcome to the Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Canadian Story. I'm very honored to have Keith Matthew here, a chief, a paragon in his community, but also, or a former chief now, paragon in his community. Keith, why don't you share with our listeners a little bit of your background?
Thank you, David. It's nice to be here. Hello to you and Zach.
Hey.
As you mentioned, my name is Keith Matthew. I'm from the Simpcw First Nation. We're one of 16 nations that make up the Shuswap Nation, and the language that we speak is Simpcw, which is an Interior Salish dialect, and we're closely related to the Enlakapam, or the Nicola people, the Statliam people, or the Lillewat, and Silk people. So there's 4 Interior Salish tribes. We're one of those 4 great tribes, and we all speak Interior Salish dialects. And we understand each other enough to swear at each other.
Very important.
I had a friend say once,
absolutely.
I know English and cursing. So those
are the first things you learn when you're learning a language, right? But just a little bit about me, guys. I'm a former chief and counselor for my community. I served for 10 years, 5 years as a counselor, and then 5 years as the chief of the Simpcw First Nation. And during that time, I was instrumental in being our lead negotiator on a number of different economic development projects, including helping us buy half interest in Mike Wiegele Helicopter Skiing. And that was more of a passive investment for us, but it allowed me to go heli-skiing anytime I wanted. I never did take the opportunity, by the way.
You should have.
Yeah, I know. I kicked myself for that one. But also put together deals with major industry players in forestry by acquiring and purchasing fibre agreements for my community. I helped negotiate our first agreement with Trans Mountain. It was then known as Kinder Morgan Canada. Back in 2007, I helped negotiate that agreement for us, and a subsequent agreement in May 2016. And as you guys are probably well aware, pipelines and energy issues are a huge public policy issue. That's ongoing debate around climate change and all those other things. So I was instrumental in getting to yes on those agreements. We walked those agreements through our community. We designed an information package, and we had an independent third party who did the community vote for us, and we got 80% support for all those projects. And that's the informed consent piece that everyone talks about. That's popular in discussions today. So we've actually done that. I was also instrumental in helping develop our Simpcw development, or Simpcw Resources Limited, and that's our development corporation for our community. And I'm really proud of that. I currently chair that for my community. We're going to be probably netting about $30 million this year.
Amazing.
We have we do work on we're pipeliners and loggers in the North Thompson Valley here in British Columbia. And we've got, we do operations and maintenance for the pipeline, as well as construction. We do reactivation, and we have 18 joint ventures. We've got 0.7% unemployment rate.
Oh, that's amazing.
0.7, guys.
Wow.
I've never heard of a number that low. Wow. So was it, walk us through how you went, how you got there. Like, what did it take to build this?
Oh, a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
We started in 2007, the current iteration for Simpcw Resources Limited. And, you know, it took a lot of work because there has to be a clear separation between politics and business, you know, and that gets mentioned a lot in a lot of the literature around structuring a successful development corporation for Indigenous communities. And we put in the legal structure, as well as we talked to our best minds in the local area around the tax experts, and making sure that we had an advance ruling from Revenue Canada for our structure, so it'd be tax free, which everyone sort of wishes they had.
Yes.
But
sure.
Our community has that in place, and we've got the proper legal structure, and we've been working away at it for the past 13 years. And it took a lot of hard work. So what happens with we first set up our consultation accommodation framework, which is based on Haida and Taku Supreme Court of Canada decisions that were handed down probably over 15 years ago now. And we learned from Delgamuukw, which was the northern tribes in British Columbia, won that Supreme Court of Canada challenge back in the late 90s. And even though they won the decision, there was no action follow-up as far as putting in place in practical terms what that Supreme Court of Canada decision actually meant. And here in British Columbia, we're amongst the most litigious First Nations anywhere in Canada.
Right.
We've been fighting because a lot of the land in British Columbia was unceded territory. Back in 1910, our people, the interior tribes from where I call home, around the Kamloops area, we all got together, and we had James Tate, who was he spoke half a dozen different interior Salish languages. He was our interpreter. And what he did is he was our strategist as well. And we arranged a meeting with the then Prime Minister of Canada, Laurier, who was in the midst of an election. And this was 1910. And he would go on to lose to Borden in the next election. So what happened was we put forward, we called it the Memorial to Sir Wilfrid Laurier. And it talked about our dreams as Indigenous people to settle the land question. And we said, we'll divvy up everything in British Columbia, 50-50, and we'll hold each other up. Here's our buy-in to the Constitution. Here's our buy-in to Canada. And, unfortunately, Prime Minister would lose the election, and all of our, there was a good lesson in there for us.
Right.
That you have to talk to all the different parties. And get all parties' support for what you're trying to do to resolve these longstanding issues. But that's a historical foundation for what we're talking about today. And it goes back to us wanting to resolve all these issues. We had a plan in place, but unfortunately, no one took us up on that offer. And as a result, we're at where we are today. A lot of confusion around land issues, a lot of confusion around what's happened recently with 215 children. The Indian Act looms over us as something that's an ongoing issue and problem for us. As an Indigenous person, I've got a status card, and my status card number defines who I am to the federal government. I'm a ward of the federal government. That means I'm a child legally in the eyes of the federal government, that they have a fiduciary responsibility to look after me from cradle to grave. But unfortunately, I don't want that.
Right. Yeah. No.
I don't want that. I really don't want that. I want to own my own land. I want to have debt. And by debt, I mean buying a house. I have a house right now on my reserve. I have a mortgage, but it's what Hernando de Soto calls dead capital. That my asset here, and the biggest one that anyone makes a purchase in their lives, is a home, right? But because it's on reserve, it has no value.
Right.
Or virtually no value. The market that I have is being able to sell to other community members in my community. And it's just absurd in this day and age that we have to live with that kind of nonsense. So, yeah.
So I completely agree. So you your people have been here a very long time. Canada, if it belongs to anyone, belongs to the First Nations, right? I love what you were saying about wanting this partnership of the 50-50. And it is strange that people keep rejecting this, but let's go on what you love about this place for a moment. Like, what is it about Canada? I mean, Canada is so important in all aspects of culture, but particularly to yours. Tell us about that love.
Well, I love the fact that we have a democracy that, and I go back to our traditions and our culture and the things that we hold dear. And it's the fact that we have a democratic, flat society where we didn't have typical for other West Coast cultures, those caste systems and stuff like that. And our model of governance is very, very similar to the Canadian style of government, not the Westminster style or anything like that, but a flat structure where anyone who has the ability and will to lead has an opportunity, like my good friend, the MLA from Kitimat.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and he was a chief in his community. Tell me what his name is, because I know you
Ellis Ross.
There you go.
Yep.
Ellis was a chief counselor for the Haisla Nation, and he used that particular platform to go from, and it's a huge jump, guys. It's a huge jump to go from being a chief in your own community to an MLA for this huge area up around the Kitimat area.
The size of a lot of countries. His riding is the size of a lot of countries.
Absolutely. But the politics are absolutely so different. But that's what I love about this country, that Indigenous people have the ability to be leaders in our own communities. And I look back at some of those examples. Len Marchand, under the Trudeau government, was a cabinet minister.
Yes.
And he was a personal friend of my father's, who was the chief of my community at that time. And he wrote a book called Breaking Trail. And he talked about his experiences as an Indigenous man back in the 60s, rising up to become a cabinet member in Trudeau's cabinet. And, a lot of people hate Trudeau for, being condescending and all these other things. But he was actually good for us, because he opened the door for a lot of the opportunities that we have as Indigenous peoples. And people like Len Marchand, whose son is now a judge in Kamloops, and his family is very, very successful. Lori, his daughter, is doing extremely well for herself. And, as Indigenous people, we have those opportunities. My community has, like I mentioned, 0.7% unemployment rate. But more importantly, we've got amongst the highest rates of educated people per capita of any Indigenous community in Canada.
Oh, wow.
We've got a medical doctor. We've got all kinds of people who've got their degrees. They've got the masters. They've got the doctorates. And we're extremely proud of that. But we're most proud of the fact that we have to work for a living. And we're positive and contributing members of the local regional economy. In fact, we're the biggest employer in the valley. And we did that by hard work and being smart. And for me, it was about identifying the key people in different industries, hiring them, and then paying them and listening to them. Right. That's what leadership. What leadership is all about.
Building the team.
Absolutely. And listening to them.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Yeah, hiring them and listening to them.
Can you give us some examples, like a few vignettes about that, where you've worked with people? And like, I love that. Leadership is totally about that. So can you give us some tangible examples from your life of moments you saw that, so that, so that our listeners can learn from what you saw there?
Well, it's been a long road, guys. And I don't have any stories about that in particular, but for us, especially in my community, the example that I like to use is that we've got with our development corporation, we have a CEO who is paid market rates,
right? Yeah,
and he's got experience in the oil and gas industry. We've got 4 chartered accountants working for us. Our cash flows are incredible. They're huge. And, the fact that we can manage businesses and look after them for the benefit of our communities. That's what this is all about as far as I'm concerned. Getting training for our people, getting opportunities for them for lifetime opportunities for work if they so choose. So we're going after longer term opportunities with different industries, and we're playing the long game as opposed to a short or medium term game. And we're looking to help our people acquire the skills, build equity in their homes if they so choose, and making sure that they can buy a new truck and educate their children.
Yeah,
those are the success stories as far as I'm concerned. And
absolutely,
that's what we're most proud of.
Yeah, you should be. I mean, I was blown away when we had obviously Ellis on before you were on. I'm blown away by both of your guys' like true commitment to your people and leadership. And I keep telling the listeners to just pay attention to this because it's so important. What you guys are exemplifying is what every leader should strive to be. It should be about making the lives of the people that are following you, the people you're responsible for, better. And on that note, I think in terms of leadership, I'd love to hear what the Canadian story is, from your Canadian story. You know what I mean? What is the story of your family here? Why do you think that we've still so struggling to solve even the beginnings of these problems, and maybe some ideas on how we could move forward?
Absolutely. I think, the learning has been one-sided. And what I mean by that is that we've been forced to learn your language, at the same time being asked or being forced to discard our own language, our own culture, our own history in favor of English. And my dad and my mom both went to the residential school in Kamloops. My mom was trained to be a homemaker. My dad was trained to be a farmhand. And in that day and age, my dad was born in 1919. So he was going to school in the early 30s, and during that time there's a Great Depression. And I remember my mom telling me her parents, who had a big orchard, they're self-sufficient, completely self-sufficient. They didn't need money, basically, because they would grow their own food and can it and store it, and everyone had a cellar and an orchard. But my mom said that my mom's family would take in non-native people and feed them.
Wow.
Because that's our culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're taught to share. So it comes back to that earlier point, and I want to talk about my dad a little bit as well. But I want to come back to that point about us sharing, because that's how we are taught to live. And that's the greatest expression of wealth, when you can share what you have with other people and raise them up. Yes. And that's a little bit different than the Canadian experience, which is all about the entrepreneur being number one, and you look after number one at all costs, and it's a dog eat dog world. Ours is a little bit different viewpoint. If we can help our own people out and raise everyone up and raise that standard of living, that's a success.
Absolutely. I couldn't
agree in real ways. And my dad, he went to that residential school in Kamloops along with my mom, and he was a Second World War veteran, and for our First Nations people across Canada, because we're wards of the federal government, they couldn't conscript us by law.
Right.
So our men and women that enrolled in the Canadian Army or Navy, they did it as volunteers.
Right. Yeah.
And here's the good part of the story. A lot of our people, even though we were second-class citizens in Canada, we still fought for this country against the World War II foes that that everyone knows. But we here and our people died. We were in Normandy. We were in Italy. I remember taking a look at my uncle would always come and stay with us because he didn't have a place to stay. He was a Second World War veteran, and he had bullet holes in his back from a machine gun in northern Africa.
Wow.
And our people actually died. Our veterans are buried in those cemeteries in Europe, because they gave their lives for this place that we call Canada, even though they were treated as second-class citizens, And that goes back a long, long ways. And we're volunteers. We fought for this, what we call Canada today. And we've given our blood to uphold the honor of Canada. And we think it's time that Canada uphold that honor and gave something back to us, which is justice. And what I mean by that is those 215 kids that were found recently, I would like Canada to help us and not just give us platitudes, not just, symbolic gestures like lowering the flag and, talking about how important it is to help us. And I would like Canada to actually step up and help us bring the Catholic Church, which has never apologized for their role and culpability in taking away our language, culture, our history, and all of those abuses that were perpetrated upon us in the name of civilization. I'd like the Canadian government to hold them to account for what they did, because Canada has apologized. They apologized when this was going back about 15 years ago now. And Prime Minister Harper apologized on the Hill for Canada's role in the residential schools. But Canada really needs to help bring the Catholic Church to, number one, acknowledge what they did. Once they acknowledge, I want them to apologize to us. And then I want them to help rebuild our language, our culture, and our history, and get beyond all of the simple platitudes and saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Because that's what they took away from us that was most dear, as well as the lives of those little children that have been found, those 215. And that hurt us. That hurt us. And we were saying that to the different hearings that were taking place around the residential schools issues. And the officials at that time were saying, prove it.
What? Really?
Here's your proof. Here's your proof.
Oh, they said, prove it.
Yeah, that's exactly what they said. So now we have the proof, and it's such a horrible issue, guys.
Yeah. Oh. catastrophic.
I'm horrified, because both my parents went to that school, and by the grace of God, I'm here. They survived, and a lot of those young kids didn't.
No.
And that's what's most heartbreaking about this whole issue. But we're not vengeful people. We're not. We don't. I hope we don't hold a grudge, and I hope we can build Canada up into the best country in the world. But first, there's some things that need to be right. They need to be righted, and they need to be made whole, and that's one of them. And I don't want the Catholic Church's money. I don't need it. I don't need it.
Yeah,
I don't need the blood money. I went to, along with a delegation of leaders, went to meet Pope Francis back in 2016. And I was carrying a letter from the national chief, and we laid out what we wanted from the Pope at that time. We went to the Vatican, and we met with Pope Francis in a private meeting. As well, we took in the Wednesday Mass that he has at St. Petersburg Square. And then we met with Archbishop Tomasi. And Archbishop Tomasi is the nuts and bolts guy behind the Vatican. So we went into the Vatican and we met with him. And we asked him a number of things. We asked him to acknowledge that they did us wrong and to apologize. We asked him to repeal the papal bulls. There was 3 of them. That they're over 500 years old now. But basically, the papal bulls were an agreement between the Roman Catholic Church and the then states, England and all those states that came over to North America. The agreement was that those countries would get North and South America and other areas in the Commonwealth that they so-called discovered. But we're here. How can you discover a place when there's already people here?
Yeah, it's a weak argument.
This is how they explained it, guys. This is how they explained it. The church called us soulless, and we didn't have a soul because we're no better than animals in the forest, because we weren't a part of any organized religion. So the agreement was between the church was that the countries would lay claim to North and South America and all the other areas in the Commonwealth that they tried to expand their commonwealth.
Right.
So they would get the land and all the resources, and there's incredible wealth in North and South America, incredible wealth. And the church would get our souls.
Wow. That was the deal.
That was the deal. Take a look. Take a look at the papal bulls. There's 3 of them. And we were there to ask Pope Francis if he would repeal those, because they're the basis of the doctrine of discovery, which talks about, so-called legal fiction about claiming our lands. And the other one was terra nullius, which talks about an empty land.
Oh,
we're like animals because we're soulless.
So what happened when you asked? What did they say?
They said, "Come back and talk. Keep talking," because we talked to Archbishop Tomasi, and we know there's unfinished business. And we said we want to continue this discussion, and we want to advance our agreement, which is, based on the fact that they have to agree that they did us wrong, number one, and apologize and help us rebuild our language, culture, and history. But that's just me. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
Right.
But that was the basis of that letter that the national chief wrote as well, and there was a couple of other conditions in there.
Wow. So I have a couple questions on this. How have you been so able to forgive people? Like it seems to me that you've I mean, obviously this is horribly painful. I can't even imagine from your perspective, but the attitude you're bringing to this is just incredible. One of the things we try to do on this podcast is like show people the wisdom of those who have lived well. And I can't believe that there doesn't seem to be anger. Like you said, we're not vengeful people. How do you do that?
It's a great question.
By being healthy, by being healthy and, educating myself. And, when I was growing up, my dad was the chief of my community. And the Indian agent approached him and asked him, do you want to send your kids to the residential, continue sending them to the residential school, or do you want to send them to the public school? And my dad, because of him and my mom's experience at the Kamloops Indian Residential School, said, we want to educate our kids in the public school. And for us, that was a turning point. And there was also a number of other real key turning points for us as Indigenous people from British Columbia. 1975, we shut down a residential school in Kamloops. And this mid-70s were also high water points for us when we actually said to Indian Affairs, close down your offices here in Kamloops and leave. So what happened was a process of devolution where we would take on the responsibilities and programs from Indian Affairs, Health Canada. And that's where we actually started setting up our own administrations, our own band managers, our own housing departments, our own education departments. And it spawned a whole movement to Indian-led, Indian control of Indian education. Right. And that for us was a high water mark as well, because with knowledge is power, and when you can educate yourself and look after your own interests, whether it's administering your own band offices with your own people, having your own development corporations with own source revenues that can help rebuild our language, culture, and history with our own money without asking anyone for for going to them and cap in hand and saying, "Can you help us?" That's real power.
Yes, freedom. That's freedom.
Absolutely, and those are some of the lessons that we've learned, and and in the process, for me, I've been 30 years sober because there's a lot of stereotypes out there about Indigenous people being drunks and lazy and all this other crap, and it's so untrue. It's such a lie because we've been put into a situation by a piece of legislation called the Indian Act. And I mentioned off the top that I'm a child of the federal government.
Yeah,
I'm a legal ward of the federal government. And it's coming to the realization that I don't need them. I don't need their programs. I don't need their help to do anything. And a lot of our people are in that situation. We have our own individuals who are high net worth individuals now. And we can choose our own path in life. We don't need programs. We don't need the help of the federal government to look after us or be a child of theirs anymore. And that's the realization that we kind of came to here in my community. And it started with asking Indian Affairs to move out of Kamloops. And taking on those responsibilities of looking after those programs for ourselves. And, it's an evolutionary process. And in the meantime, looking after the individual.
I love this because essentially your answer is, how did you overcome it? You took responsibility for your life and said, I'm going to forge my own path.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're doing that, and, the dream is not to have to depend on anyone for any of those things, and we're living that in a real way. And pretty darn happy about that. And just knowing that our children have the opportunity to do whatever they want in their lives. That's what my dad dreamed about. He was one of the most angry men that I've ever met in my life because of his experience of having to go to that residential school. And there's intergenerational trauma that accrues from, both my parents. And that doesn't mean that I don't love or didn't love them with all of my heart and soul. But they were broken individuals. They weren't taught parenting. They weren't taught how to look after. I had 7 brothers and sisters. And, there was a lot of self-medication that occurred. And those old stereotypes, they were true to a certain extent because the residential school broke a whole, probably 5 or 6 generations of people. And the toll on our community is immeasurable in suffering and pain and all those other things. And what you saw the last couple of days with finding those 215 little children, you've seen an outpouring of emotion from Indigenous people from across Canada. And it's opened up a lot of wounds that we thought we had healed and moved beyond. But, what's encouraging to me, guys, David and Zach, is that the city of Kamloops, we did 4 days, and 4 days for our culture, that's a sacred number. So we had a sacred fire for 4 days, and everyone is invited to our sacred fire. And we would go there and we would do hand drumming, our sacred songs, and we would put tobacco down in the fire. We would put food in the fire for those dearly departed people, because the spirits need to eat. So, the ones that are still hanging around. So we did that. But what was most encouraging to me, guys, is the fact that Kamloops rallied to us. And I have gotten all kinds of emails, calls from people who are saying, we support you. We support you. We stand with you. And we want to see you get justice. And we want to be part of that. And there was a lineup of cars stretching back into the city all the way into the Powell Arbor at Kamloops, where we're having a number of those ceremonies. And people were being welcomed. And
wow.
People were showing up and they were saying, what can we do to help? I've gotten so many calls. And that's what means the most to me and others who are going through this struggle. And I like to think that it's because Canadians understand what has happened or are beginning to understand, and they just want to help. They're decent, good people. Given the opportunity to straighten something out that's plagued us for over 150 years now, we're at an inflection point in history, guys.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, the great hope is that that we can actually build that partnership you were talking about.
We can. It's within the realm of possibility, and we can finally meet you there, because we're coming from a position of strength rather than weakness.
Yes.
So let's ask the question on behalf of David and I, on behalf of the people who listen to our podcast. What is it that we can do to support you? Because we do support you and we do want to be a part of the solution, and we want to be a part of the group of people that step forward into relationship and good, healthy, respectful relationship. What are those action points for us?
Understand the real history of Canada. Understand it. Take a look at that reconciliation report. You don't need to read the entire thing. Read the executive summary. Take a look at the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples. Read the executive summary and look at it and try and see it for what it is. because there's a number of things that within the Royal Commission report on Aboriginal peoples, RCAP. There's the reconciliation report that was released, and there's a number of other things, important documentation around how we get treated as individuals within the health system. There's that inquiry that's happening in Quebec right now. Understand what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that there's also a report that talked about institutional racism against individuals and my people here in British Columbia with the healthcare system. And it was authored by Turpel Lafond. And it talks about the problems that the healthcare system here in British Columbia, which is no different anywhere in Canada, quite honestly. In some places it's worse, sometimes it's better. But, you know, that institutional racism, you know, you take a look at what happened in Quebec where, you know, the Indigenous woman is dying, and she died as a result of, you know, the lack of proper care by those Quebec healthcare professionals. And in this day and age, that should never happen, guys.
No,
ever.
No,
to anyone. I don't care. I don't care if you're brown, black, red, or white.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
No,
it doesn't matter.
You're
guys.
human.
No.
But here's the point I'm trying to make. Educate yourselves.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, yeah.
Educate yourselves, because we've had to educate ourselves as Indigenous Canadians. We have taken that responsibility very, very seriously, and we continue to do that today. And we will educate other non-Native people in a good way.
Yes. Yeah.
Not coming from hate or anger or any of those base emotions, because that will never advance a platform where we can actually have a discussion and create a safe space for everyone to have a really intelligent conversation about where we want to go as Canadians. Because I'm a Canadian.
Yes.
We paid our blood fighting in the world. My grandfathers in the First and Second World War and all those other wars that our veterans have volunteered for.
Yeah,
we paid our price, and we continue to pay today. You know, and I really take offense at people that say, "Well, you know, we're living off the Canadian taxpayers." Yeah, well, you wouldn't have a tax base without the land that we're currently calling Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we haven't settled that. We haven't settled that particular real estate transaction yet either.
No,
we're still waiting, and we're patient because we're not going anywhere, guys. We're not. So, in answer to your question, educate yourselves on the issues that are important to us, and we'll help you understand that as well, because we're constantly educating people about what we think is important, and we think those are important public policy issues that need to be resolved.
On that note, I loved what you said, that you don't need the Catholic Church's money, but you want them to help rebuild what they took from you. So on that note, can you give me, or give Zach and I, one thing about your culture that could almost die but has been brought back that just brings you so much joy?
So, Gene, my unique worldview. So, Gene is a language my people talk, and it's a dialect of the Interior Salish. And if you look at all the documentation about the residential school, it was about removing our culture, our language, our history from the children forcibly, washing their mouths out with soap, making them do unspeakable acts and torturing them, you know, because they're speaking our sacred language. And for us, my people, there's about 20,000 Shuswap people. That's the Anglo term for us. We call ourselves Soquapan. There's 20,000 of us left in this world, and no one speaks our language,
right?
But us. It's a distinct language unto itself, and it talks about a beautiful worldview about how Coyote was sent by the old one to teach us how to live on the land. It talks about sharing. It talks about caring. It talks about all kinds of things. And once our language is gone, that whole worldview is gone, and everyone is much poorer for that. That's what we're talking about. And that's what we hold dear to our hearts, because we don't want to lose that, because it means the world to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about, when we created the Simpcw Heritage Trust here in my community, that was one of the areas that we said would be important to us: language, rebuilding, and retention. So what our young people are doing is using the different platforms like this platform, Zoom, to do language lessons for people who can't make it out to their classroom. So they do virtual classrooms, and they bring elders in, and the elders talk about the language and teach the young people how to speak our language. And in particular, there's a young, my niece, who has taken on, and she's a fluent speaker of Simpcw Skiing now, because she has made it her personal mission in life to learn what that is, and all of those different concepts that go into being a Simpcw person. And that's what means the most to us. And it's not about money, guys.
No.
It's not. It's priceless. And
yeah, it's
the government of Canada and the church tried to take that from us.
Yeah, they tried to take your. They said you didn't have souls, and they tried to take what actually was your soul from you.
Absolutely, it's like being a Borg and just assuming
assimilate, yeah.
Assimilation.
Yeah,
great reference.
Wow,
great reference.
I knew you guys would know what that is.
That's true.
I'm a nerd.
We're nerdy too.
My father raised me on that TV show. So
yeah.
it's near and dear to me.
Right on, guys.
Oh, what a thank you. Oh, we have to go because we have another one coming up here. But thank you so much for doing this. We all know you didn't have to. It's kind of like your ancestors did, volunteering for the war. You didn't have to go into this war. No, it's not your job to educate us. It's our job to educate ourselves. But I am so grateful for the wisdom you've given us here and the perspective you have. I'm always blown away every time I talk about this with people like yourself. I feel like I would just be filled with rage all the time, and you guys have forgiven, and it's quite incredible. So thank you.
No, the rage is just, it's a one-way street, man.
Right.
And
right.
You just, it's not a good thing. And our elders talk about that, and what it'll do, it'll kill you. It'll kill you. It'll eat you from the inside. The elders that I talked to, they said that it'll eat you up like a cancer from inside of you. And sickness comes in through one of four doorways: through your language, or through your emotion, your physical, your spiritual, and I forget the fourth. And that's how sickness gets into your body. And rage is like that, because if you leave it long enough, it'll eat you from the inside out, and it'll kill you, and it'll wreak havoc on all those people around you. And quite honestly, we don't want that. We want to be recognized as what we are, as real human beings with souls, with purpose, with a mission, and we want to be able to share that with other Canadians, because we think we've got a beautiful culture, and we're raised on that we have to share it. If our elders say, if you've got a gift, it doesn't It's not a gift until you can give it away.
Oh, wow. Yeah. There it is. It's not a gift unless you can give it away. Well, thank you, sir. Can't thank you enough. This has been really good, and I have a lot of reading to do.
Yeah, we really do appreciate your time, and I just want to say that we support you, and we love you, and we want to be a part of the solution. So thank you for helping us be better at what we need to be better at, and I look forward to the journey ahead of growth and of reconciliation and of coming together.
Absolutely, and reconciliation has a lot of different forms, guys. So we'll meet you there.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll be ready. I know you guys are ready. I know you are.
We're ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of Canadians are. They're just looking for someone to provide them with a path forward, and we'll do that. We'll work on that together.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's The CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.